Okay, so let me not wait for more time. Let me start the class. So today the topic what we're going to discuss about is the process synchronization. So synchronization in the sense the work will be done one after the other in a synchronization mode. Like for example, when we go for having a booking a train ticket, okay, we are going to the railway station for booking the train ticket. So there, uh, the persons who are about to book for a train ticket will be standing in the form of a queue, right? I hope you observed that one after the other they are going to take, and the person will get the ticket only if the person at the front is completed processing his ticket, or else completed booking his ticket. So until and unless the front person who is standing has completed his ticket booking done, the next person is not going to get a chance, right? So there is a particular synchronization is being followed, that after one student another sorry after one candidate another candidate is going to get the uh, train ticket to be booked. In the similar way, when I talk about your processes, there are numerous amount of processes available in the computer system that will ask for resources, now. Here the passenger is asking for the resource to travel from one part of a place to another part of place, right? Suppose you can think like from Secunderabad he want to go to some other place like LB Nagar, like that. So he is waiting in the queue for a metro train ticket to be booked. Okay, so the resource is what? Your metro. Okay, the resource is metro, and you are the process. So your task is to move from Secunderabad to LB Nagar. Your task is to move from Secunderabad to LB Nagar. So like that way, many other processes will be there in overall. When I consider the Hyderabad as a one unit, so I am comparing your Hyderabad as a one unit with your system, that is your CPU. Okay, so like many passengers available in the Hyderabad who are moving from Secunderabad to what is it, LB Nagar. In the same way, you are the processor I am comparing with. The candidate who is traveling, you are the processor. The resource is your metro train. Okay, so I think like you know about the timings of the metro train. They will be available after 5 minutes once, right? I hope so. Maybe if delayed, it will be available within 10 minutes. So the metro trains are the resources. You can say them as a resource 1, resource 2, resource 3 for multiple number of trains. And you are the process. Okay. So the process, suppose let me take you as a process P1. So process P1 is to travel from Secunderabad to LB Nagar. And process P2 will be there, who is going to travel from Secunderabad to some other place in between before LB Nagar. Before LB Nagar, so is going to get down at some other place. So in the same way, in your CPU there will be numerous amount of processes available, which are going to do multiple tasks, each and every process have their own task to complete. Each and every process has their own task to complete. Now let me take two processes. As you can see in the screen, two processes are there, P1 and P2, what I am now shading with or selecting with. There are two processes, P1 and P2. And suppose let me take two types of different resources. One is shared resources, another one is non-shared resources. So if I take an example for a shared resources, so printer can be an example for a shared resources. Okay, printer can be example for a shared resources. So how can I say printer can be an example? Because whenever you go to a big organization or an office in any of the company, you can see a printer is situated at the corner, and it will be accessed by different members of the company, or different employees of the company who are sitting at different corners, maybe in the particular area nearby the printer, a cabin nearby the printer, or somewhat a cabin outside a particular area. So the printer will be connected or shared between the different systems through the LAN network, that is a local area network. Okay, but whenever you try to see if at all it is a shared system, Let me take two examples. Let me take an example that P1 is a process. P1 is a system number one who is going to give the print, and P2 is a system number two who is going to give the print. What happens if they give the printout instance at the same time, at the same second? So there will be a dilemma, right? The printer will not recognize which actual system has given and which command has to be accepted and which printout has to be done. That is what the confusion within the system. So suppose if there is a gap of a seconds or some 2 seconds or 3 seconds between the system number one and system number two, even though the printer can take it as within a queue, that system number one has given first the printout command. So let me print the data details for the system number one. Later it will shift itself for the system number two. That is what the process regularly how it goes on, even though it is a shareable resource, even though it is a shareable resource. In the same way, now I took an example like suppose one person is going from Sikandrabad to LB Nagar, that is process P1, and another person is going from Sikandrabad to some other middle area. Let us take process number P3. He is also going from Sikandrabad to some distinct area other than LB Nagar and the another destination what the process P2 has chosen. So, right. So P1, P2, P3 are approaching the metro at a same time. Metro at a same time. Like you, there will be multiple number of processes who wills to access the resource, like access the metro train. Suppose what is the thing is if the metro is full, if the metro is full, can it carry out an extra members? No, it can't carry. It can't carry. It can carry the number of processes only if there is a space. If, if there is a particular amount of space to be carried out. Okay, the passengers can be carried out in a metro train only if there are certain space available. If the space is not available, then the security guard will be there available nearby the metro gates, who is going to stop. That is, you can wait here for some amount of time, and you can fetch the next train, next metro train within 5 minutes. That is what the process, that what happens in the metro train. So they will ask or request for the passengers to wait for more 5 minutes and board the next train, whatever is going to approach. So some certain synchronization is being carried out. So this was one of the examples. So another example you can take, there are two brothers in a family who is having only single bike. So two brothers are going to colleges at a different area, at a different area. So something what a brother number one, B1, let me give. He has to go to the college, which is about some 5 kilometers. Next, let me take brother two, who is having the college, more than 5 kilometers, like some 7 kilometers or something like that for B2. So if I want to be in a synchronized mode, or if I want to use the resource of bike for both the brothers, then the best option is that let the brother two drop down brother one at his college, which is at the earliest. Then the brother two can move to his own college by picking up the bike, by taking the bike. That is what a process that is being work is done in a very synchronized way. Suppose if what happens, the brother one does not will to drop down the brother two, and he pick the resource with his own for his own needs, like before going to college he want to go somewhere outside. So brother two who is having the college plus 2 kilometers extra than the brother one, then he need to suffer now. He need to wait for outside at a bus stop, either wait for the city bus or either wait for any autos for carrying out. So that is what happens for the brother two. There is what a situation being created where due to the failure of the synchronization, the problem is occurred to the brother two. And in the technical way to define this terminology, we say it as race condition. This terminology we will say it as a race condition. The race condition is nothing but it is the improper situation being happened once the process synchronization is not there. Okay. So simply, I want to take an example here on the screen, what you can see in a notepad. So A is an variable. So A is an variable. I can give A as any value. So here I'm taking A as 10, for example. So I'm writing a simple part of a code to understand the process synchronization. So P is the process, P is the somewhat function name. So here I am applying two commands, that is read and write. R indicates the read, W indicates the write. So I am first reading the variable A. So if it is I am giving here 10, then it will read A as 10. Okay. Then I am going to increment. So here what is happening is A is already 10. I am incrementing it by 1. So once I increment, the A value will upgrade to 11. So later on what I am doing, I am applying the command W. So W, what it happens, it will write the particular element at the output. So now after reading earlier it was 10, now at the second instruction it is changed to 11. So once I try to write the output, what will be the output? As you can guess, it will be 11. Okay, so at the output I will get the output as 11. So I will get the output as 11. So now this is what a simple part of code I wanted to make you understand. Let me take two processes, process P1 and process P2. Let me take an example of two brothers as the same, like B1 and B2, which is the work is done in a synchronized way. Okay. So now first what I will do, I will make the process one to execute this code. I will make the process one to execute this code. So process one will execute the code, it will execute the read command. So when process one execute the read command, so it will read the data of A. So A is having the variable as assigned as 10. So it will read as 10. So and the next instruction, it will get incremented by 1. So it will become 11. So next the process P1 will go for uh, writing the particular output. So it will try to write the output. So it will get the output as, it will get the output as 10. Okay. So finally the process P1 is going to get the output as, the process P1 is going to get the output as 11, right? So now let me make the process P2 as the next person who is going to execute. Okay, so process P2 will start executing. So now since the process P1 has executed once, now the A value earlier it was 10, now it has got updated to what, 11. So once the process P2 starts executing this particular set of code, it will read the amount, it will read A. So once it reads A, what will be the output of what it is that P2 is going to read it? It is going to read it as 11. Why? Because earlier it was 10, and once the process P1 is executed, it got updated to what, 11. So now if any other processes read the A value, it will get the updated value to be read. So now process P2 will read the A, so it will read it as 11. So in the next instruction, it is going to get incremented by 1. Okay, so 11 plus 1 is what, 12. So A is been updated to 12. So next process P2, in the third instruction, it will try to write the A value. It will try to write the A value. So at the time when it was executing or writing the A value, what will be the output that P2 is going to get? So P2 is going to get the output as 12. So this is what I can say, something what the process is running in a synchronized way. This is what the process is going to get run in a synchronized way, that first P1 is running its process and next P2 is running its process. Now suppose what I will do, I will change a little bit part of execution here. I hope you remembered the context switching in your earlier chapter, that is context switching will help you to switch from one process to another process. Okay, so if the particular process P1 is executing and sudden system call like a context switching is been made, then it will shift from process P1 to the next upcoming processes to be executed. It might be a process P2, it might be a process P3, or it may be a process P4. So that you can say using either one of the process scheduling algorithms or a CPU scheduling algorithms, the process is going to shift from one of the process to another process. So this shifting process from one process to another process is called as context switching. So context switching, it might either you can consider it as an forceful switching from one process to another process, or you can say it is something what like prioritized switching. Okay, like that how you observed the different scheduling algorithms earlier, like CPU scheduling algorithms. Based on any one of a type, I'm going to switch the context. So now here also I'm going to switch the context from P1 to P2, P1 to P2. Let me restart the execution from the beginning. Let me take the process P1 is executing the code. Okay, so since I'm starting from the beginning, I'm going to reset the values of a and all. Okay, so now if I reset the a value again, it is having the value of a as 10 only. So process P1 will start executing. So first instruction it will read a, first instruction it will read a. So once it reads a, the process a is having the value, the variable a is having the value 10. Okay, so process P1, the process P1 is getting context switched to process P2. Okay, at the particular instruction, at the particular first instruction after reading the a value, process P1 is going to get context switch to process P2. So at the present case, when P1 was reading the first instruction a, so P1 has read the value a as 10. Okay, now once the context switching is done, I am going to switch from P1 to P2. So P1 to P2, what I noted in this comment. So context switching has been applied. So P1 to P2, the process is going to switch. Now process P2 will start running the code from the beginning. So process P2 will read the a variable. So a variable what process P2 is reading, again it will be 10 only. So it is going to execute its complete its execution, and so it is going for a next instruction, that is a is equal to a plus 1. So 10 plus 1 is what, 11. So P2 after executing this, it is got updated with the a variable, that is 11. So now lastly in the last instruction it is going to write the particular value what a is getting stored. So P2 is going to write it as an output in the form of 11. So P2 is going to get the instruction value as 11. So once that is done, so once the P2 is done, now P2 has completed its execution. So once P2 has executed the execution, then no other processes are remained in the particular queue. So only remaining process is P1. So process P1 is the remaining process who is going to execute. So already it has read A as only what, 10. It has read as 10, which is being written here. P1 has read the value as 10. Now once it starts the execution of a second instruction, it will get incremented by 1. So P1 will be having what, the updated value of a as 11, that is 10 plus 1 is equal to 11. So next it will write the content of a. So it will write the content as, so P1 is uh, going to get the output as 11. Now you can see in the previous, the when I executed the process in a synchronized way, I was getting 12 as a result. Now here I am getting 11 for both the processes. So I think would have understand. So since the process what now they executed were not in synchronized way, so they almost got the same result, which is a wrong one, actually. If the process were executed in a synchronized way, the final result should be 12. It should be what? It should be 12. It should be 12. It is a correct one. So it is a wrong one. It is wrong one. So 12 is the correct. So earlier, when the process is executed in a synchronized way, then we got the correct results. So first P1 got executed, and then P2 got executed. So final, the updated value of A when it was being printed as an output, it was 12. So now when the processes were executing in a asynchronous way due to the context switch, what happened between P1 to P1 to P2, due to this asynchronized way of execution, the result what we are going to get is wrong. The result what we are going to get is wrong. So if we can take an example, so the total strength to the total population of the Indian country is more than 1.3 something crores. Okay, so at a time, if all the population wants to travel from Maharashtra to Karnataka or else Maharashtra to Hyderabad, so is it possible for a single train to travel from carrying out 1.3 population crores from Maharashtra to Karnataka? Is it possible? I hope so. It is not, right. So what happens, there is no any synchronized mode of traveling from the two different states. So if there was a synchronized mode between the population of Indian country to travel from two different states, then I can say that there is a synchronized process wherein they are going to travel. So it means what? One passenger can travel from one state to another state at one time. So another passenger can wait for a next schedule of the same train, or else they can board the different train, like train number two, train number three, train number four, which is going to travel from the same between the destination between the same states. So this is what they can follow the synchronized or scheduled timetable from one train to another train, and they can travel simply by other than rushing out at the same time, which is an impossible process, or else train can't carry 1.3 crore people at the same time. That is what impossible task that is. So this is what the meaning of synchronization is. This is what the meaning of synchronization is. Hope I think like you guys got understood about this. So next is uh, about the critical section. Okay, so critical section states that at most only one process can execute within the mean time. So if a process is going to get execute, means it is going to get the CPU for execution, only one process can be stay only one process can stay back in the CPU for its execution. And then once its execution is done or else execution is completed, then it can come outside the CPU, and it can allow the next process which is waiting it can allow the next process which is waiting the CPU resources, and it can get exited outside. So next process will enter the CPU, and it will execute its part of code. So that is what the critical section is. So to understand this critical section, there are three particular terminologies that need to be made eligible. Right. So this is a simple structure wherein I can say I'm going to follow the critical section rules. So something what I am writing the code I do while. So until it is true, it is going to get executed. So if I take a process P1 is going to enter, so it will be in the entry section. So it is something like a queue where it is waiting for a process to enter the critical section. So once it get the critical section, it will execute, and once it's completed, it will go in exit section. So once it is getting out, it will go for a reminder section. and later on, once it go for reminder section, the next section which is waiting in the entry section is going to start its process repeatedly until its complete process execution is done. So here let me take as a process P1 and P2, the two processes. Let me take process P1 is having the burst time of 5, and process P2 is having the burst time of 2. Okay, burst time of 2, and the window what I am going to give for execution is only 2 units of time. So any of the process which is going to enter the critical section can execute for only 2 units of time, and then it is going to get exited outside, So do while loop will be repeatedly executing these processes until their total burst time is completed. Okay, so as I said, now P1, I hope if you have a notebook and a pen with you, please you can note it down. So P1 is having the burst time of 5, and the P2 is having the burst time of 2. Now P1 will enter the entry section, like within the do while loop. So here there is an entry section. So in this entry section, the P1 is going to enter. So it is going to enter the critical section and it will start its execution. So please remember that P1 burst time is 5, and the window what I can execute the particular time what I can execute within the critical section is only 2. So P1 will execute up till 2 units of time and then exit itself outside the loop. So it will be in the reminder section. P1 will be in the reminder section. So P1 reminders, when it will be in the reminder section, how much burst time it is going to remain with yet? It is going to remain with more 3 units of time, or 3 units of time to be executed. Next, after P1, P2 is going to enter. P2 is going to enter the critical section. So P2, when it enters the critical section, it is having 2 burst time. So it is got available with the 2 units of time. It will execute complete process and it will exit outside. So since when it goes for a reminder section, when we check that while it is true that P2 has completed its execution, it will exit outside. So remaining the process in the reminder section is what? P1. So it is remain with what? More 3 units of burst time. So it will go back to the entry section. Then it will go to the critical section. So since there were 3 units of time remained, so it will execute for more 2 units of time, and again it will come back to the reminder section, as it is having another 1 more unit of time to be executed. So since in the overall system only 2 processes are available, what I took as an example, so remained process is what? P1 only. So it is again going to enter the entry section. It will execute up till 1 unit of time, as only 1 unit of uh, time process is remained with its execution. So it will execute. Since the execution of P1 is completed, it is matching while it is true, then it is going to exit outside the loop. Okay, so this is one of the I can say code wherein I can follow the some synchronized way. So sometimes what happens, so there is a process, um, P1 and P2. P1 is having something what 200 burst time, that is it needs 200 time to complete its execution. P2 is a process which is having only 2. Now I am giving P1 as the most prioritized process. Prioritized in the sense very important one. So if I give the P1 as the most prioritized process, then P1 will be repeatedly executed in the critical section up till completion of all 200 units of time. So P2 will never get a chance. So P2 has to wait for 200 units of time to get its critical section to be executed. Okay, so that is what the possibility that occurs due to the prioritized process and unprioritized processes. So during this time, since P2 has to wait, the P2 has to keep on waiting, and this terminology where P2 will remain for in a waiting condition, may certainly leads to the deadlock. Deadlock in the sense, if any resources are not available to further carry out their processes, then they will go in some what to say, in some state of matter wherein the total process is blocked for execution. So that type of state is called as a deadlock. They are not going to get the critical section again back for execution. Okay, so deadlock means totally stopped. So no matter, we will discuss about the deadlocks in the next upcoming classes. That is not a matter. So that is what. So P2 is going to lose its set of executable part. Only P1 will be keep on repeating. P1 will be keep on repeating. So this is what was something, what a problem that will get occurred with the critical section. To solve this issues, we have a solution. We have a solution. So whenever the critical section, this type of problem is being occurred, I need to kindly manage these three. I can say it as three following requirements. Okay, so if a particular critical section processes are going to execute, they should follow these three requirements. If they do follow these three requirements, then they can kindly finish off their processes. Okay, so first one is mutual exclusion. So mutual exclusion states that if whenever the process enters for execution, it will complete its execution and it will come outside. So once the process is in the critical section, no other processes can enter the critical section for its execution. So now P1 is in the critical section executing its process, then P2 cannot enter until and unless the P1 is finished its execution. That is what the mutual exclusion means. Next one is progress. So progress in the sense, when I say, if there are set of processes which don't want to enter the critical section, they can either exclude from the outside part only, at the entry section only. So let me take it as the three processes, P1, P2, and P3. P1 wants to execute, okay, in the critical section. P1 wants to execute it part of code in the critical section. So it want to enter. Then P2 is not having any means of execution. It means it is not having any work to be done. Okay, it is what just idle, or it can, I can say it is an empty. So P3 is the third process which really wants to go for execution after P2. Now, progress in the sense, it will define like, if any processes are available in the entry section, if they don't require any of the processes to be executed in the critical section, they can remain idle in the reminder section, either it can exit outside the loop, so that the processes which requires the critical section to be executed can be made enter. Now here three processes I took, P1, P2, and P3. P1 wants to execute, P2 don't want to execute, P3 wants to execute. Now the sequentiality is arranged like P1, P2, and P3. So after P1, P2 is going to execute. After P2, P3 is going to execute. So here what is happening is, P1 is executing and now P2 don't want to enter. So P2 is not having any part of its execution. So it don't want to enter the critical section. So simply, instead of entering the critical section and wasting the time, P2 can assign its part to the P3, that is upcoming process P3, so that P3 can execute perfectly. P3 can execute perfectly in the critical section and complete its execution. That is what. So assigning or reassigning this part of work from P2 to P3, since P2 is not having any executable part to be done in the critical section, is just going to shift itself from the what is that, entry section to the either exit section or reminder section, and assigning its next disciple for P3. So this way of the process being carried out, this is called as a progress. Okay, you can see the statements here. If no process is executing in its critical section and some process wish to enter the critical section, then only those processes that are not executing in the reminder section can participate in deciding which will enter next. Okay, and this selection cannot be postponed indefinitely. So it can't be done for a indefinite time amount of times. Okay. So next is bounded waiting. So bounded waiting in the sense, I can say there will be some limit. Okay, so let me take an as a real-time example. Since after the lockdown state number 2, some relaxation was been given for the citizens to move from one place to another place with a bounded time, like that is from morning 7 a.m. to evening 7 p.m. So after evening 7 p.m., it was again the curfew type, since like no other vehicles will roam outside. If any vehicles or any members will be roaming outside, they will be strictly punished and the vehicles will be seized. That was what the order of the government. So same thing I can say, there was a bounded time wherein the number of citizens can get their work done. So from morning 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The time restriction, like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., this is called as the bounded time, wherein the real thing wherein the customers can get their work done, and any of the business persons can sell their type of they can do their business in that sense. So here, what I meant to say is bounded waiting is a time period wherein the process has to wait for to enter the critical section. So once this bounded waiting time is done, then the process which is executing in the critical section will be preempted. Preempted in the sense, it will be stopped forcefully, and the next process will be made enter, which is waiting outside for its execution. So that is what bounded wait. So if any of the process is not following these or fulfilling these requirements, then I can say problem will occur with the critical section. The problem will occur with the critical section. So if any one of these requirements are not satisfied. Okay. So now next, in the next discussion, we are going to discuss about how can I go for solving this issue. So there are certain solutions being made available to resolve this critical section problem. So that will be discussed in the next class. So this class I am winding it out, right? So next class, that is tomorrow from 2 to 3, again we are going to discuss about the solution for critical section problem. What if any process will not satisfy the following these three requirements? Either it may not satisfy mutual exclusion, either it may not satisfy progress, or either it may not satisfy bounded waiting. If any of these requirements are not being fulfilled, so what happens? Okay, obviously and problem will occur, and how can I tackle this problem? That is what we are going to discuss in the next class, that is tomorrow from 2 to 3. So I hope everyone is quite good and safe. Be safe, be at home, don't expose yourself for any pandemic situations like coronavirus and all. So right, and study well for your examinations. Fine, then I'm going to stop the meeting or stop the class. Bye bye, have a nice day, good day.